like hardcore action, big explosions, and 7-foot-tall aliens? How about a gritty crime drama or a buddy cop movie? Do you want witty one-liners, laser guns, a double cross, gratuitous nudity for no reason other than it's awesome? 80s karate fights, fast car chases, and 90 minutes of a great time? Well, I have 4 words for you.
I come in peace.
I haven't been to a movie in like 2 years, man. 2 years. Endgame was the end for me, and now I gotta go back to the old catalog. And we all do this, because when the newest thing doesn't work for us, then we go back to the warm comfort food of what worked in the past. You can call it nostalgia if you want to. I don't think it's that. I think it's sticking with what works when new stuff doesn't. You know, new experiences don't. And I realize these mid-budget action films, they are awesome. They've aged like fine wine. No, spirited scotch. And they are never coming back.
Caine, you're the only man I know who'd rather die than break his word, so promise me that's an order.
I want Manning.
What is it? All right, on IMDb, it's called Dark Angel. But when it came out, it was called I Come in Peace. Something about confusing the audiences about a movie that came out in the 30s or something. I do know. So what's I Come in Peace? It's Lethal Weapon, it's Critters, and the Terminator running a train on RoboCop who got pregnant. This is the love child. The budget, this gem cost $7 million in 1990 to make back $8.5 million in theaters, which sounds bad, but it actually isn't. But I'll kind of get to that, and that's kind of why they aren't coming back. It was directed by Craig Baxley, who you have never heard of, but you definitely know where he learned directing from. He was originally the second unit director for Predator, and he went on to make 3 feature-length movies. Action Jackson, Stone Cold, which you may have seen Red Letter Media talking about on Best of the Worst, another awesome film, and I Come in Peace, which is all you need to know about this guy. So for a brief period, the people who worked on the greatest action films of all time were able to branch out and make some cool action kids for the Christmas party. By the way, you can tell just from the opening jingle, this is another Christmas movie.
Someone special is coming to town, and it's not Santa Claus.
So when I talked about the inspiration for this film being a mashup of a dozen other films, the genre itself, also a bit of a mashup. Predator, for example, wasn't actually an action movie, and Arnie wasn't actually an action star. Arnie was a sci-fi star. And Predator was a horror film with sci-fi elements wearing an action movie trench coat. And I Come in Peace is really a serialized action adventure mashed up with a murder mystery, a buddy cop movie, and it's all wearing science fiction as a trench coat. That is what I love about movies like this. So when I was writing this script, I found it actually difficult to describe this movie, and that's because this simple B movie is really more sophisticated than it has any right. It was written by David Coep, who also wrote the screenplay for Mission Impossible, Jurassic Park, The Mummy, Men in Black, Carlito's Way, and for some reason, every crappy Indiana Jones film after The Last Crusade. But I don't hold that against him. But you see what I mean? Like, all of these people, massive amounts of talent. You've seen all of their work, and then they came together to make other stuff. And there's multiple reasons why I say these movies are never coming back. And that's not an opinion, that's an economic fact. The reason they aren't coming back is because we don't have VHS tapes or DVDs anymore. You see, back when a mid-budget movie was likely skimming on the things that made movies theatrically profitable, aka marketing, you had to double down the budget of the film in order to market it, and smaller studios like Caine or Orion, they couldn't do that. I can't do that. But what they could do is they could make movies good enough that did okay in the theaters, which was great marketing for people to buy $15 videotapes or $20 DVDs to watch at home, and the video stars would buy those $100 tapes to rent out to others. Like, some of the best movies you've ever seen were box office flops but home video giants. For example, Happy Gilmore. Happy effing Gilmore made the news that while it broke even at the box office, it became the highest grossing home video of all time. Happy fucking Gilmore, man. Can you believe that? So I want to believe there's enough DVDs and VHS tapes of I Come in Peace out there that keeps this baby floating. I have my doubts. Before I talk about how great this movie is, and it is, oh, it is, and I say this without irony, the Citizen Caine of buddy cop sci-fi action crime thrillers. This baby walked so that movies like Species and shows like Earth Final Conflict could run. And another reason these kind of films are never coming back. Because back then, there was two distinct schools of action. There was American and there was Hong Kong. Back in the day, Hong Kong was owned by Britain, and we got to see what Chinese filmmakers were capable of. But then 1997 happens, and you know, rip Kowloon Walled City, man. So by the way they did things for Hong Kong was wide shots, choreographed action scenes like Chinese opera, hyper-realistic fights, and America got a whiff of it with movies like Hard Boiled, and they took all the wrong lessons from it. Then, of course, Osama bin Laden took out the Twin Towers and everybody was out, and how about realistic fights and quick cuts? Jason Bourne and The Raid showed up like a decade later and put two in the back of the head of like great Hong Kong cinema. But American films, on the other hand, oh, they used action as a character. The fights were more like the WWF and less like the Waffle House. Everything was story. Every punch was like a piece of dialogue, a plot point, a character arc. It was awesome. Like, I'm not even exaggerating. It was awesome. But, and here's the thing, the action required a suspension of disbelief. I don't understand. In this shot he showed the left kick, and this shot he showed the right kick. Shut up. Unfortunately, in the world of Ritalin, autism, and mandated house arrest, because you guessed it, Hong Kong and their damn flus, you aren't getting anything now but hyper-literal Redditors spouting communist propaganda about media literacy. So go for reason 3, they're not coming back. But I'm gonna get back to that.
Better hurry.
So this buddy cop sci-fi action crime thriller drama mystery has 3 main heroes and 1 villain.
I come in peace.
Dolph Lundgren, Detective Jack Caine, Brian Benben, Special Agent Larry Smith, and Betsy Brantley. Yeah, they don't name girls Betsy anymore. It's like a cow name. Anyway, she was the girlfriend of the cop, Diane Pallone, and you probably have seen her work. She was best known as the live-action model they used for Jessica Rabbit in Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Oh, and for the villain, it's Matthias Hughes as Talek, the alien monster. And this guy's most popular films are Big Top Pee-wee, where he plays a lion tamer with all of 5 seconds of screen time, and Star Trek VI for maybe 2 seconds. But those 2 seconds, they slap hard. So his B-movie career exists to make actors like Dolph Lundgren, who's like 6'5", look small. And if you were a shorter guy like Jean-Claude Van Damme, instead you had Bolo Young. So Dolph Lundgren was riding high in his career, rocking success in Rocky IV, Masters of the Universe, and The Punisher, which is a classic. It just does not get enough love. I mean, what more is there to say? Genius, scientist, philanthropist, actor, Olympian, mostly known by the Zoomers as the mentally retarded drunk in The Expendables. That's everything right there. It's the most interesting man in the world for modern audiences. And you may not know the other guy, Brian Benben, but I guarantee you his shadow runs wide. If Brian had not been a big deal in the 80s, we wouldn't have Seinfeld in the 90s. We wouldn't have had Californication in the 2000s. We wouldn't have Family Guy today. He's one of those cultural keystones in the 90s that nobody even remembers. Like, I'm talking about his big thing was his HBO series called Dream On. And if you don't know Dream On, oh, dude, get into it. It is a series about a divorced book editor who has a best friend who's essentially Arsenio Hall, who sleeps with hot women every episode and processes his life through cutaways to the 1960 films and TV shows he grew up watching. His ex-wife's new husband, I shit you not, he was the greatest guy on earth. just to jab it in about how crappy his divorce was. So when you take cutaways from Family Guy, the single guy sitcoms like Seinfeld, and degenerate guy rom-coms like Californication, this is what started it all. And this is Brian Benben. Like, I'm amazed that it got memory hold. Probably because of the massive amounts of nudity in like every episode. And so look, I'm gonna be real here with you for a moment. I hate, and I mean I hate movie reviews on YouTube. Other than like red letter media, it's like you needed to be an unemployed, college-educated commie blathering about media literacy to even want to do this. Luckily for you, I'm not that guy. I was trained by the Navy to sink communists. And what I'm about to say will show you how you can enjoy this film for what it is, without stupid words like media literacy, deconstruction, or diversity, without you having to ask why the laws of physics don't 100% apply, his arm shouldn't be able to throw him out like... shut up. You don't need media literacy and the history of whatever the hell to understand this, because the story gives you everything you need. Like, this is what competent writing does. You have themes, you have tone, you have character arcs, you have plot points, and exposition, and they all feed into a coherent story with a little moral message that allows you to have fun with it, with the added bonus of requiring more from you than just passive consumption. Marcia McLuhan, the most famous Canadian intellectual until Jordan Peterson showed up and stole his thunder, would talk about hot mediums and cold mediums. Cold mediums, like books, require you to use your creative imagination to fill in the blanks. Books can describe things, but you have to visualize them yourself. Hot mediums, like movies, they don't need that. You sit there and absorb it like you're in that Clockwork Orange chair, but instead of mandated and under-tested forced medical treatment, wink wink, you have popcorn and Hot Pockets. What underdeveloped CGI and theatric action, as opposed to literal action, can do is give your brain just that little bit of work to do. Adds that bit of chill to a hot medium, so you don't atrophy away in the latest Marvel slopjank that you can't remember. Seriously, what was the plot to the fucking Eternals again? Yeah, I thought so.
Actually,
You cops think you're so smart.
The theme. So what is the theme of I Come in Peace? It's trusting your instincts, man. Trusting your instincts. It's a movie about learning to trust your instincts, to keep your promises, and to get the job done. Simple, right? Relatable. Am I right, fellas? Since that 80s, the more you know Reagan era of movies, like cartoons were there to sell toys in this age, so they had to look wholesome, and then in every episode, they'd tell you not to do drugs, to eat your Wheaties, and do your homework. The moral lesson underlies space alien shootouts. They never beat you over the head with the moral lessons either. You don't have to agree with the message, you just have to allow yourself to understand it and be entertained by it. And these guys, they showed you how it worked in a fun and engaging way. Because this is how the brain processes information. We don't think in facts, we don't think in data, we don't need realism, otherwise we can't understand what's going on. We think in stories. That is why movies and books are awesome. Their structure is fundamental to how we can see the world.
what happened?
And that's the worst part, because like this part of it doesn't have to be dead and not coming back. It's basic competent storytelling. And it's been around since like before the pyramids. Similar to action film serials like this film was influenced by, Flash Gordon and the like, they have a largely blank slate, Mary Sue protagonist. Dolph doesn't have a character arc. He's a hero. He doesn't need one. This, however, makes a boring movie because you never see him grow or do anything, right? Let's just ask Jeremy the Quartering about Captain Marvel, see what his opinion on that is, see how important it is.
お前はもう死んでいる。何？
So the way they get around this is they give the character arcs to the other characters. Agent Smith and Diane, they get the character arcs. So you still have that sense of growth, that sense of progression. So, and if you don't know what a character arc is, characters have two things at the start of the movie. They have a desire and they have a need. Desire is what they want, and need is the thing they require but they don't know about. And as they progress, the events of the movie drive them to get what they desire, realize it's not important, and then achieve what they need. So, what are the character arcs in I Come in Peace?
Right, who the hell is that?
Agent Larry Smith is the shining star of the FBI. He's the youngest and most successful FBI agent around. He plays by the rules, he's got his notepad, and he's going places. You can tell he's a little insecure about it because he keeps bragging about trying to bully people with his credentials and making a point about dressing to impress. And all those little details are peppered in the movie to make him into what you know of as a people pleaser. He's young, he's smart, he's driven, ultimately a validation-seeking young man who read all the books on being a cop and has all the answers. His character arc is established early in the movie when they look for the first clue at the original crime scene. And of course, since Caine stands like a whole fucking 1.5 feet taller than him, he gets pushed around a fair bit. I mean, as the movie goes on, he's forced to go along with Caine, who trusts his instincts. And he does this because, well, Dolph is physically twice his size and threatens to punch him in the face more than once, as well as there's no training for alien criminal investigations, so he's out of his element. He goes against protocol when Caine delivers the weird piece of alien tech to his friend instead of turning it into the feds. He's forced to break his rule about somebody else driving his car when the yuppie, drug-dealing white boy organization tries to kill him. You see him pull out a hand cannon of a Magnum and you learn a little bit more about him. Turns out he's got potential to be Dirty Harry, but his desire to get validation from his F.B.I. mentor prevents him from that need, so he has to learn to trust his instincts.
Shit, where'd you get that? Christmas present for my mother.
That's it. These guys get level 2.
Yeah, my mom gave it to me for Christmas. See that? It's like a nod to being a people pleaser, a mama's boy, but potentially he's a great cop. I mean, look at this. Look at that Dirty Harry of a gun. If he just learned to let go and trust his instincts, he could do it. But, so later on, I guess earlier on, but later on in this, Caine suspects Smith tried to break into Caine's apartment and steal the disc earlier, but there's no proof. And later, his friend's lab, who he left it at, gets broken into by dudes in suits who look just a lot like Smith. Was it the yuppie drug dealers, or did Smith tip off the feds? You just don't know whether he will turn to the dark side or not. Then, in the third act, he manages to get a space gun from an alien, a second alien, who's an intergalactic police officer who was mortally wounded, and asks them to help him catch Talek. Makes him promise. That comes up later. Smith knows he should take the gun to the feds, but Dolph's like, don't trust anyone. They give a clue to the audience too, which is a nice little setup and payoff, which the movie is just full of, man. And this is the moment where he has to decide. And oh, he does. He does his job, and he gives the gun to his chief. And this is the lowest point in the character arc. He's gone against his instincts, he doesn't trust them, and it has disastrous consequences. His chief tries to kill him, keep things quiet. There's a great tell for the audience, and this is what makes the show have, I think it's what makes the show have good writing. Setups and payoffs.
Switzer is a liar. He'll tell you one thing, he means another. Pretty soon he'll feed you that old line about breaking eggs to make an omelet.
Aliens killing people.
Can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs.
Caine saves his life because he trusted his instincts and he followed Smith. If the F.B.I. was Jesus, this would be his resurrection. In a funny bit of symbolism, by the way. So after this, they get into a bit of a scrap and he gets his arm injured. He needs a new jacket for the final fight because he ripped his last one in the fight with Talek. So Caine gives him a leather coat that he owned when he was a kid.
Hey, fits.
I should. It was mine when I was 12.
It's little stuff like this, man, that really make a movie way more fun to watch than it has any right being. Like, it symbolizes he's finally ready to embrace his instincts. He's literally stepping into Caine's role as the hero. Of course, he's half Caine's size, so they need to make a short joke about his 12-year-old jacket. And it makes sense, and it entertains. You know, it's pulling double duty here. So yay! Agent Larry Smith learns that his desire to be loved by the FBI by following the rules would get him killed, and finds out by trusting his instincts, he becomes a better cop and grows as a person.
You fucked up, Caine!
Oh shit, not now.
Where's the money?
Diane, the girlfriend, it's a shorter one, it's still good. They establish early on that Caine is a man of his word. If he promises what he'll do what he says. And during an early scene, he spends the night at her place to grieve over his dead partner, Smooth. He asks him to promise her something like he does with everybody else. She wants to be a part of his life, as important as police work. She desires a promise, to know he's important to him as the job is, which he loves. And then they kind of put that aside, because throughout the movie, she basically is there to give exposition for the science behind the alien, and giving clues to the character so they can drive the plot forward. And during the movie, like I said, they sit on the character arc for a bit, but during Caine's lowest point, he's taken off the case and he's forced on vacation, he promises Diane that they'll go on a vacation. She got a promise. She quit her job, she packed her bag, she's ready to go to the Bahamas. The only thing standing in her way is a gang of white boy yuppie drug dealers and a psychotic alien killer who comes after them. As she shows up to like Caine's apartment, packed and ready to go, Diane needs to survive, and then she can take that vacation. So Diane learned that while she thought she desired a promise from Caine to know that she was loved, what she needed was to be saved from this alien murderer and be shown that she was loved.
I come in peace.
So, what's the theme of I Come in Peace? It's trusting your instincts. So simple. It's that 80s vibe, the more you know Reagan stuff. WrestleMania had Hulk Hogan drop a dude on his head and then tell you, don't do drugs, eat your Wheaties and do your homework. So you see, as you go through this, it's not just Caine, it's everybody. The characters and the plot, even though they have their character arcs going through, the plot points are there, things tend to work better when people trust their instincts, and things tend not to work out better when they stick by the book and follow the rules and trust everybody. Setups and payoffs. Like, this movie shows you that through the whole premise of it. After losing his partner to a drug sting gone wrong, a hard-boiled cop, Jack Caine, played by Dolph Lundgren, during his investigation of an American drug cartel, finds out aliens have invaded Earth with their own agenda, and he has to save the world while repairing his struggling relationship with Diane, but this becomes more complicated than he could have ever expected. So I Come in Peace makes liberal use of setups and payoffs. And in a movie, if you want people to suspend disbelief in your fictional world, you have to set something up, some rule about the world in an innocuous way that doesn't have a major impact. Then later on, you set it up once, twice, sometimes 3 times, and then you have it pay off in some way to the audience or the characters in a way that pushes the plot forward. Otherwise, you end up with something called Deus Ex Machina, or whatever they pronounce it as. I'm not good with Latin. It's an old Greek thing where they'd have the character in the plot at his worst point, and then the gods would come down from Olympus and save the hero out of nowhere, robbing the audience of the satisfaction of seeing things play out. For example, at the first crime scene, Caine and Smith are stumped at how some dude was able to kill armed yuppie drug dealers with a blade so easily. So Caine goes to a strip club to clear his mind, which is actually him talking to an informant. The informant lets him know the white boys think the cops stole it and are starting a war with them. And that's their first setup. Yuppies are coming after the cops because they think a war has started, even though the alien was the one that killed them. And then the scene here can do 2 things at once with another setup. Caine notices the ball moving on the pool table, figures out the crime scene. And because of that, he finds the disc inside of the speaker. Later on, he gives it to his friend, who figures out it's a magnetic blade, it's tuned to the frequency of the human body. Second setup. Because at the end of the movie, and he's having the main fight with Talek. Talek shoots one of those discs at him, but he remembered about the magnetic thing, so he carries a car speaker with him that deflects the disc, saves his life. It would have looked weird if you never saw the setups and you knew what was going on. If Talek had never used the thing during a final fight. So either way, you need that initial piece of information so whatever happens at the end makes sense. Otherwise, it would have taken you out of the moment, and that's why setups matter. They make everything make sense. And this is why I hate autist commies talking about this on movies, because they sit here arguing about the realism of something. Oh, it's not how it would happen in real life. It's not that it's not realistic. It's that they didn't set it up. And they completely missed the point. I blame, again, Ritalin, autism, and not enough people eating their Wheaties. So that's the stuff I'm talking about. It's not NASA, but it lets you think, lets you put the pieces together without explicitly beating you over the head with it. It's not media literacy. You're following a story, it's written competently. It's not that hard. You see a second alien, and you assume he's evil like the first one, because they set that up, and they hint at it throughout. But then, when Caine first runs into the alien, he almost gets killed. Second alien comes, saves his life. Why? Why? Ah, he must be a cop. Set up. Then, later on, he finds the second alien in the back of his car because they already have a little rapport here with that brief second of interlock they've seen. He gets the alien gun, he learns about why they're there, and he knows why he has to stop them. The plot of the movie essentially starts about an hour into it. If he was just there randomly, none of this would make any sense. Why is he going into Caine's car? Why is he talking to him? They've never even met, but you need those setups so it makes sense. And because he saved Caine's life earlier, and he saw Caine was solving crimes around this whole thing, and Caine now owes him one, he makes him promise, which was already set up way earlier in the movie, that if he promises, he'll get it done. Set up, payoff, it makes sense. So I know I said Caine doesn't have an arc, and he doesn't have an arc per se, but that's not entirely true. It's more of a setup and a payoff. So here, in the opening scene, he's monitoring his partner doing a drug deal. He leaves the mic for a minute to go stop a robbery that happens to be happening next door, and then in that time his partner gets killed. Cries about it, vows to avenge him by arresting the yuppie drug corporation and killing the main guys. And then at the end of the movie, the alien cop who saves his life asks him to promise he's going to avenge him by killing Talek. I mean, it's a bit of a stretch, but he kind of achieves his desire here to avenge his partner. But he finds out that he would have been killed by the alien anyways, but he finds out he needs to save the world. So the plot. So now that you know the theme, the character arcs, the bit of the setups, and the payoffs, how do you get into this movie to begin with? Like, that's the premise. The movie shows you that through the premise. Like I said before, losing his partner, drug sting gone wrong, help take down a yuppie drug corporation, hard-boiled cop, yada, yada, yada. And action films generally have a really flimsy plot. It mostly exists to get you from set piece to set piece. Bad guy is bad, stops him before he takes over the world. It wasn't even into an hour into this movie that you find out the plot to this movie. The actual plot is an alien cop named Azek, who's chasing an alien drug dealer, Talek. The most valuable drug in the universe is endorphins, and it turns out you can harvest it from humans way cheaper than whatever they get it now. The first trip to Earth will pave the way for thousands of alien drug dealers to farm humans and possibly decimate the human race. It'll be a bloodbath. And I'm sure there's something here that they're saying about the crack being cheaper to manufacture than cocaine and how it ran through America. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if the writer was inspired by it, decided to add aliens to the mix. Make the ordinary extraordinary. That tends to keep people tied with something that's both relatable but not boring because we already know it. And then Caine, looking to avenge his partner, forced to work with the FBI on a joint investigation into these drug dealers. In attempting to solve the mystery, he finds out about the aliens coming to Earth, and after the alien takes out the drug dealers, he needs to avenge Azek and take a vacation. The plot also establishes a secondary villain. There's a gang called the White Boys, and they're like a Wall Street corporation of yuppie drug dealers which blew up a police station and stole all the heroin. Early on, you see Caine karate-kicking drug dealers, left, right, and center, taking them out effortlessly. It establishes, setup and payoff. He can kick ass and just mows down criminals easily, effortlessly. The alien gets involved because he's stealing the heroin from the drug busts and using it to farm his endorphin farming from his victims. It's hinted that he steals and kills the yuppie, steals other drugs, and that's because that's why the White Boys, they think that it was the cops and they're starting a war. So now he has like two battles going on simultaneously, two plots going in parallel. They then find an alien projectile at the crime scene, find out it's a space-aged homing blade. His ex-girlfriend / cop doctor finds out that during her autopsy of the victims that they were drained of dopamine and killed by heroin overdoses. Her instincts tell her that dopamine is a hell of a drug, but there's no way to extract it from people. They don't have the tech for it, but this is what it would look like. In the FBI, they raid the lab where the friend is studying the weapon and they steal it. Why would the FBI be doing this? And then through Caine's investigation, he runs into the alien where they have their first fight. He tries to fight him, almost dies, right away, barely saved by another alien who turns out to be an intergalactic cop. The cop, mortally wounded, hiding in Caine's car, asks for his help in trying to stop this drug dealer. So Caine takes what he's learned about the alien so far, along with his newfound badass partner, Agent Smith, which we talked about earlier, to go and confront him. They almost die again, but they get his endorphin stash, which means Talek will now be coming after him, and they have to prepare for the final fight somewhere away from the city so people don't get hurt. And then they pick that awesome industrial forge set that they've been using in like every movie in the 80s. I think it was in RoboCop, for example. And then some explosions and fights, and you get your payoff. Caine just can't do anything to this guy. He walks off bullets, takes a shotgun blast in the chest and gets irritated. He can't be hurt with any of those karate moves. Caine's hurt bad. Taylor even tries to use his little dopamine harvesting machine on him, which delivers a lethal dose of heroin. So in the last minute, Caine actually jabs it into Taylor's neck, which weakens him just enough that Caine can karate kick him into a metal pipe, impaling him. Then, like every action movie, you gotta say some cool shit.
I come in peace. And you go in pieces, asshole.
We had a brief period in history where we invented cinema, but before CGI made it sterile. We had a director who learned his craft from the greatest movies in history, but they are all retired or are all dead right now. Competent professional writers and simple plots made extraordinary. Where movies could work with smaller budgets and make just enough money from home movie sales without having to resort to the spectacle and billion-dollar budget of Hollywood theatrical sloppy films. We had a brief period in the 80s and the 90s where people had started to mash up genres into whole new movies which reinvigorated Hollywood. And I don't know, man. I just love it. I just love it. And there's no way you don't love it, and if you've never seen it before, there's no way you won't. And I'm not talking in the ironic way that people watch The Room. I mean, sincerely love it. In the same way you have comic books creating wonderful stories in a world that sophisticated novels exist, the way there's fun-packed indie games in a world of billion-dollar AAA consumer projects. You have the mid-budget, serialized action film mashed up with a buddy cop movie wearing a sci-fi trench coat in the 80s and the 90s. It was the pinnacle of fun and light and easy-to-watch movies that keep you engaged with the tricks and tactics of storytelling that have entertained people since before the written word. So yeah, I come in peace. I want you guys to enjoy it, fellas, because I damn well did. Cheers.
It's the best time to be alive, and it's just begging you to take this non-stop action roller coaster for a ride. Drive it like you stole it, ride it hard, and put it away wet.